So, have you ever felt like you weren't enough? Maybe you felt like you're not smart enough or successful enough. Maybe you felt like you're just not worthy enough. So many times that thought comes from the fact that we live in a world that is constantly telling us that we need to be more, we need to do more, we need to have more. And because of that, it's really easy to fall into the trap of believing the lie that I'm not enough. But here's the truth that I want us to focus on today. That lie is designed to keep you stuck and keep you small and keep you scared, which is why the conversation we're going to have today is all about dismantling that deception so that we can really step into the truth that we were created with divine purpose and we were equipped with everything that we need to thrive. And I have such a powerful guest who's going to join me today to help us reject the lie that I'm not enough so that we can embrace the truth of who God says we are. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, real quick, I want to make sure that you know that if you enjoy my content, if you enjoy this podcast, if you even enjoy what I share on social media or in my e-newsletters, you need to become part of my Patreon community. My Patreon community is an exclusive community that will give you access to even more content that I make available publicly. You'll get early access to my podcasts on at least a monthly basis. I'm hosting a live Q&A to recap the conversations that I'm having, and you can join at different membership tiers depending on your budget, all right? So I want you to consider joining my Patreon community because I would love to connect with you in a deeper way. All right, now back to the conversation because it's gonna be good. I am so excited, y'all, because to help us deal with this question of worthiness and being enough is someone who is a transformational leader, speaker, and author, and her name is Brandi Harvey. She is committed to helping people activate their highest potential. She hosts a powerful show called Vault Empowers Talks, and she is the founder of lifestyle brand Beyond Her, which focuses on holistic health, self-care, and personal development. She's also the author of several best-selling books, including Breakthrough Sold Separately, a book that challenges readers to break free from limitations and step into the life that they were created to live. But that's not all, y'all. She has won numerous awards and recognitions, including 2 honorary doctorate degrees, and she epitomizes resilience and visionary leadership. So please join me in welcoming Brandi. Brandi, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm so excited. We got a do-over, Nona. We got a do-over. I'm excited because the last time the devil thought he had me, listen, they didn't want me to be great. We was trying for an hour, but we didn't get it. And so here we are. This is the right time. We're supposed to be here. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you even had the grace to come back because I know that day, I know you were so frustrated.
Baby,
It's like, this is not working.
I told you before we got on, I said, when this happens to like my guests on other platforms, like, I'm like, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. It's technology. And they're frustrated. And then I was like, it's all right. I saw exactly how they feel. Yeah.
Well, we are here and we're going to have this
Yeah.
conversation because I believe
Okay.
this is such an incredible and important conversation to have. Now, I want to start here. So, people walk into your life now. They walk into the successful chapter that your life is on, and they see a woman who is accomplished, who is confident, you are poised, you are all the things. But can you remember a time in your life when you struggled with this idea that I'm not enough? Can you like invite us into that? And when was it? What happened? And what was it like?
I mean, the first 33 years of my life. I mean, the first 33 years, I think I always was battling this idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough. I didn't have the right privilege as far, because I think pretty
Yeah.
privilege is a thing, right? I think, when you don't feel that confidence, right, in the way that you look, And even though my mother always used to tell me, like, I believe my cat is the
Mm.
blackest and the shiniest. My mother used to be like, you would be a sad dog if you couldn't wag your own tail. So she instilled this high level of confidence. And we had that in our home. And I
Mm.
would say we had that definitely in our church home because my sister and I and my younger brother, we grew up as church kids. And so
Yeah.
we had those safe spaces. But when I would go out into the world, when I would go to school, I didn't always feel like I was enough. I always
Yeah.
felt like there's something that I'm not doing that is going to put me on the mark of her or him.
Mm.
But once I got into therapy at
Mm.
33 years old, I got into therapy and I didn't go like I went willingly. And then, if you go for the first time, you'd be like, I think I'm good. I don't think I need to go back. I feel like there was got a lot out. You know what I'm saying? And then, my therapist said to me, I can't help what I don't know.
Mm.
I can't help what I don't know. This relationship is about trust. And at 33 years old, I had to start becoming more vulnerable. And at 33 years old, I had to start confronting myself. And by
Mm.
the time I was 35, I was going to silent meditations retreats and understanding the power of my own voice. When I get silent and I get to tune everybody else out and I tap into the divinity that is already here, that is when I started to believe, man, girl, you got everything you need. There's nothing you are lacking. Yeah.
So what was I feel like therapy, especially in the Black community, if we're honest, that has such a stigma that it takes something to get us to go. What was that moment? What was the inflection point? What happened that made you say, you know what? I think I need help. What was that?
Yeah, it was the little 8-year-old little girl that kept showing up to the party throwing temper tantrums. It was the 8-year-old little girl who was neglected and abandoned and felt that from her father and found herself trying to find it everywhere else,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
so by the time I'm 33 years old and you getting triggered by a text message, child, it was like, wait a minute, hold on. I think we need to. I was sitting in my garage. I had pulled into my garage and I had pulled in there. It was like right after a 6:30 a.m. workout, and I'm coming
Mhm.
back to the house. And I was like, you cannot continue to feel this way.
Wow.
And that was the thing that took me there. And was it easy? No, right? And I think, I grew up in a house like most Black folks. I remember at 22 years old, I told my dad, like, I need some therapy. He said, Black people, we don't have time for therapy.
Mm-mm.
You just get
Mm-mm.
over it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I heard at 22 years old, that you just get over it. And
Mm-hmm.
so for the next 10 years, what was I doing? For the next 11 years, I found myself just trying my best to get over it. And I don't care how many times I fell down at the altar. I don't care how many times I raised my hand and I was shouting and doing all of that. It didn't matter. The problem was still there because I didn't have the tools.
Yep.
I didn't have the tools. And so what I had to go do was go seek somebody else who had the tools, who could help me hone in and sharpen what was in my toolbox.
Wow. So with your work with Beyond Her, I know that you work with so many different women. What would you say are some of the common ways that this lie of not enough shows up in their lives? What are you seeing? Because I know there are a lot of women watching this who maybe they think, "Oh, I'm over it." Like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And I think we do tend to sometimes have this like manufactured strength, where it's
Yeah.
like, "Child, I don't care, child." But then you just mentioned that you were triggered by a text message, something
Yeah.
that you probably on a good day would have been like, oh, whatever. What do you see? What are some of the signs that women may be dealing with
Oh, I
insecurity?
mean, let's run a gamut. You overweight. Number one. You're overweight. And I have to believe that the weight, and Dr. Contessa said this on my show, is a padding for the pain.
Ooh.
And I think that so many women are padding the pain with the food, right? And so that's the thing that gives us comfort. It don't talk back. It don't
Yeah.
reject us. It don't make us feel no type of way. It makes us feel all the things that we want to feel. So
Mm.
number one, we get overweight because we can't stop feeling the way we feel in the midst of the weight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so here's the weight. So it's the eating and the comfort eating. It shows up in the shopping. Every 5 minutes you on Amazon Prime, TikTok shop got you in a hole, baby. You can't go nowhere without buying something because I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to solve it. It shows up in the alcohol. It
Mm.
shows up in the pills. It shows up in us trying to martyr ourselves to other people. It shows up
Mhm.
in all of those ways. And of course, we see it in Black women, but this is why you see autoimmune disease. 80% of autoimmune disease affects women. Why? Because we are so busy taking care of everyone else that we forget to take care of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so many people are martyring themselves out of duty and obligation to people, places, and things. And so they say, well, I do it and I got to do it. And if it ain't going to get right, if it ain't going to be done right, because I don't do it and I got to show up and I got to, no, you don't. You can tell them people no. And you could take a
Mhm.
rest day and you can go recalibrate yourself. So I think it shows up when we are covering it with the food, we are masking with the shopping, we're trying to cover it up and coat with the drinking, with the alcohol, with the weed, with the pills, with the sex.
Mm.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's all the things that we don't
Yeah.
think is the thing.
Oh,
And I'm here to tell you because I already know, baby, I done it all. Okay. So the sex was a problem, the shopping was a problem, the
all
weed
of
was
it.
a problem, the alcohol was a problem. It was a problem. Right. And so until I was able to address the problem and uproot it, right? Dig up the roots of why do I feel this way? What is really the triggering point?
Mhm.
What is really happening in my life? And when I start to go back and you start to deal with the things in childhood, the neglect, the
Mhm.
abandonment, the moments when you thought people were going to show up for you when they didn't, the disappointments, how all of those play into how we perceive and receive out in the world. And
Mhm.
so once I started to understand that, it helped me to have a bigger understanding of the women that were not only just coming through a Beyond Her program, or it's the
Yeah.
women I encounter when I go speak at an event. It's all of the things, you
Yeah.
know. I had a woman, I was at a speaking event and she came up and she just hugged me afterward and she was just crying. And she said, I haven't cried in 2 years. She was like, she said, you brought me to tears. This is the first time I haven't cried in 2 years. Imagine all of that emotion being stuffed down in your body. That
Yeah.
emotion, that energy emotion, it has to land somewhere. And so many of us are battling disease and illness because we have so much suppressed emotion that
Mm.
we have allowed ourselves to be dormant in our bodies. And that emotion has to land somewhere. And so it's landing in our gut, it's landing in our organs, it's landing in our knees, it's landing in our pancreas, it's
Yeah.
landing in our kidneys, it's landing in our breast, it's landing in our brain and our mind, you know?
Mhm. Girl, this is so rich. This is so rich. As you were talking, in October I released a book called The Gift of Rejection, where
Yeah.
I kind of dealt with the fact that so many of us think rejection is the worst thing that could ever happen to us, but actually in God's hands, it can become what actually unleashes purpose for us. But one of the things I talked about in the book, and you just kind of hit on it, is the expressions of rejection. So the way I look at it is it can express itself in one of two ways, either implosion or explosion. Some
Yeah.
of us implode into overeating, drug addictions, self harm, even some forms of mental health challenges are a form of implosion. Depression and anxiety, those types of things we experience, and we don't even realize it's from a primary rejection wound. And then there's on the flip side, there's the explosion. And sometimes people think that explosion is just anger. Like, I'm
Mhm.
rejected, so I'm going to reject other people. I'm going to be angry. But there's also another way that we can explode, and that's into ambition. And
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen so many women who are very successful, but also deeply insecure and struggling with this idea that I'm not enough. And so achievement becomes a proxy for worth. Like, I'm going to get the award, the recognition, I'm going to build the
Yeah.
following, I'm going to get the thing because then I will matter. Have you seen that? And I would love for you to talk through that and how people can maybe start to kind of detach themselves from that sense of success is my identity.
Yeah. I mean, of course I see it. I mean, I'm around high achieving women all the time. I'm a high achieving woman, right? And I
Hmm.
think that, as a firstborn daughter, sometimes we all, I don't know if you're a firstborn daughter. You a
I'm an only
firstborn?
child, so I'm all
Oh,
of
you're
it.
the only child. Oh, I
I'm the
didn't
oldest
know
and the
that.
youngest.
Okay.
Yes.
But sometimes like there's this idea like of perfectionism,
Oh
right?
yeah.
and we just strive to be perfect in everything, and I did it right, and I lived right, and I do it the right way, and I
Mm-hmm.
show up the right way, and I have the right attitude, like all of those things, right? And I think, yeah, women are suffering because they are just trying to achieve, but that comes from that sense of you didn't have your daddy, you know,
Yep.
and so you were trying to prove to him, look at what you missed out on.
Mm.
Look at me. I know you didn't show up for me, and I knew I was gonna be everything that everybody thought I wouldn't be, and you
Mm.
weren't there, and you didn't do it. So look at me. And I think, yeah, we've so many of us have found ourselves in those spaces. I found myself in that space,
Yeah.
of wanting to be seen, right? I mean, that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's the
Mm-hmm.
essentials of life: to be seen, heard, to be loved, right?
Yep.
And so when we don't feel seen, when we don't feel heard, we don't feel loved, well, now, yeah, of course it's going to show up in me. Look at me. Here's the success. Look at me. Look at what I've done. But I think that the way around that is finding that thing that brings you joy. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we do so many things out of duty. We do it out of because this is what I'm supposed to do. But I
Yeah.
think if we leaned into those things that really bring us pleasure, the things that
Mm.
really bring us joy in our lives, we was like, your whole family don't have to go to a painting sip for you to go take an art class. You know what I'm saying? We want to
Yes.
wait. Well, you know what? I'm gonna wait to no. I just said yesterday on my winning Wednesday, I said so many of us are waiting to experience God on Sunday when you get in the building
Mm.
because you need an audience. You need an audience.
Mm.
But there is an altar right on your floor, right at your house. There's an altar right there because we don't want to be developed in the dark.
Right.
Everybody wants the applause and the look at her and girl, I fell out and I shouted and I ran all through that church. No. Your first encounter. Some of y'all waiting on Sunday to have the encounter. The encounter happens the moment you open those eyes, the moment you look in that mirror. You are looking at the divine. And I think no matter no amount of achievement, no amount of positioning, no zip code, no car is going to help you
Yeah.
understand that the divine power of God is already inside of you. That the moment you wake up, signs and wonders. See, we're looking for the sign and the wonder. We're looking for somebody else. We're looking for God to be demonstrated outside of us. And guess what? God is staring right back at you in the mirror.
Wow.
And so when you
Mm-hmm.
start to understand that, then I can lean into the things that bring me joy. I don't care if you give me an award. I don't care. I know I'm making an impact. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if you recognize me. I already know I'm making it. I'm divine by my very presence. I am divine. I'm the sheer demonstration of who and what God is
Yes.
because I'm here.
Yes.
And so when you understand that, you get to move differently throughout the world. And when you
Mm-hmm.
understand that, you walk into a room different. And when you understand that, you go about your day in a different manner because you understand that there is too much power up in here for me to be out there waiting on you to tell me who I am.
Ooh, girl, listen. First of all, that's a word. That is a word. When you know who you are, you move
Yeah.
through life differently. And I believe that at the root of insecurity, I've talked about this for years. At the root of insecurity is having an identity that is secured to an insecure foundation, which is
Ooh,
something that is a subject to the approval, the opinions, the evaluation, or the assessment of man. Like, oh
yeah.
yeah, I even gave the example of how, sometimes we'll pursue different degrees and credentials because we believe that if we get this thing, that it'll make us, look better in people's eyes. But, not all degrees and credentials are created equally. Like, I remember when I was at Facebook, I worked there for 6 years. And I remember working with people who had degrees from like Yale and Princeton and Harvard. And I have mine from the University of Florida, which is not a bad school, but it ain't Harvard, right? And so here I am. I'm working at this incredible company, have this incredible job, and I'm doing all this incredible work. And I still have to grapple with insecurity. Why? Because my educational pedigree isn't the same as my colleagues. And so now, when you don't know who you are and you're actually taking your claim and your worth from something that is subject to another person's evaluation, of course you're going to walk into a room insecure.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to walk in not thinking that you deserve to be there. And I think imposter syndrome is actually a derivative of not knowing who you are. God
Yeah.
gave me a revelation years ago that you are not an imposter when you're called. You're an imposter when you call yourself. So when you
Mm,
try to put yourself in the place, That's how you feel like an imposter. But when God calls you there, when He's decided that you deserve to be there, you're not
Yeah.
an imposter, even if you're not qualified.
Yeah.
So I love what you just said, and I hope people take that to heart.
It's so real. I mean, it's so many people that I sit down with. Rashawn Ali did my show. Fawn Weaver has done a show, and they've been asked that on so many stages about imposter syndrome, and like, no, I don't have it. I deserve to be here. Like,
Hmm.
they're like, I don't have it. I deserve to be here. And I found
Yeah.
myself in those moments feeling like, yeah, there were moments along the way I didn't deserve it. I'm getting these awards, and I'm like, I feel like there's so much more I want to do in my career. Like, here's the
Hmm.
award, right? But then it was like, I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And that's always God's wink, sometimes of letting you know, like, you're right. You're right where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
Lean into the moment.
That's
Yeah.
good. Hey, listen, I'm inserting myself in this conversation for just a minute because if you're enjoying this conversation and if you enjoy the many conversations that I host through my podcast, I want to invite you to join me for my free virtual masterclass, How to Bounce Back Better. My mission in life is to help you and people like you discover the power within you to not just go through stuff, not just survive, but I want you to learn how to grow through stuff, how to thrive. How to Bounce Back Better is an hour-long virtual masterclass, and I offer multiple sessions every single week. If you want to register, all you have to do is head over to nonajones.com, and you will see a big link, a big button that says free masterclass. Just click the button, and you can sign up today. I want to see you in the next masterclass because I promise you there are tools, tactics, strategies, and tips that have helped me build resilience that I want to give to you. So again, head over to nonajones.com to click the big free masterclass button and get signed up today. All right, now back to the conversation. One of your core messages, you spend a lot of time talking about wellness, and not just physically, but also spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I'd love to know, how does prioritizing just holistic health help us silence the lie that I'm not enough or I'm not worthy?
Oh, I've been saying this for years. What goes in is what comes out. It's like
Mm,
the little adage we learn in Girl Scouts. It's the thing we've been hearing our whole lives. But it
mhm,
really is what goes in is what goes out, comes out.
mhm.
And I believe, now I know this is your good Christian platform. So,
You're
yeah,
good.
I know it is. So when I say this, just know. But I live by the slogan, eat well, give a damn, move your body. Because if
Mhm.
you do those 3 things, I'm giving you the tenets to what life really is. If you
Yeah.
eat well, if you eat what you feed your mind, what you feed your body, what you feed your spirit every single day, if you give a damn about how you show up, how you treat people, how you treat
Mhm.
yourself, then wait, you already winning. And then if you move your body every single day, you get to protect, you get to maintain the very vessel that is here for you to go out and live out the purpose that you've been called to do,
Mhm.
right? And so when I think the holistic part of that is, these are just 3 simple things that people don't think are that simple that can transform your life. What
Yes.
I eat, what I fuel my body with, how I show up in the world, and how I am able to move my body. Like, working out for me is so much, it's not a chore, it is my lifestyle. There is
Mhm.
nothing else I know what to do with my morning, right? And so I get up in the morning and I go to the gym.
Yeah.
After I put on my nice little meditation, after I, get all shiny, and get ready for the day, I go to the gym. And it's the first thing in my day because nothing else can compete with it. Nothing can
Yeah.
compete with it. I've seen, but for all y'all church folks out here, y'all be tithing and offering, giving 10%, and you're not even willing to give yourself 4%. 1
Ooh.
hour a day is
Wow.
4% of your day. If
Yeah.
you are not willing to give yourself 4%, how then can you go be optimal and maximize the gifts, the talents, the ability that God has given you? How can you do
Yes.
it if you're not willing to invest 4% of your entire
Mhm.
day to you? I think when you understand that, that's a game changer, because you're like, wait a
Yes.
minute, I'm worth 4%. I'm worth 1 hour of my day is mine. And then I start my day off with lifting. I love bodybuilding. I love lifting weights. I've been lifting weights for 20 years, and I lift heavy things. And I say,
Mhm.
when I do that at 7 in the morning, I am in that gym lifting heavy things at 7 a.m. in the morning, because everything else after that, that feels so easy. I got my butt kicked this morning. You know why? Because I checked the hard thing off first. That's done. There's no way I'm gonna be thrown 300 pounds today that I ain't gonna be able to get up off me. There's no way. I already did it this morning. Check, already done. So when your 300 pounds of anger comes at me, when your 285, when your 180 comes at me, baby, that's light work. That's light work. And so when we talk about maintaining our body, that's the first temple. Would
Mhm.
you go to a church that had busted out stained glass windows, the pews was all busted up, everything was raggedy, falling apart up in there? Would you want to go sit in that church every Sunday, and then they got the nerve to ask you for a building fund? They got the nerve to ask you for an offering. They got a nerve to ask you for a pastor gift, baby. No, thank you. Where's the money going? I don't see it at work, right? It's the same thing for ourselves. Why somebody want to come do business with you and you don't even look like you do business with you?
Oof.
Why somebody want to come do business with you? You don't do business with you. You don't take yourself seriously. You don't have discipline. I know the investment ain't going to be put to good use.
Mm. Mm. Girl, when I say get us together.
That's come on. We have a choice, right? We say we want to do good things in the world, and we
Yeah.
say God has anointed us and called us to be something magnificent in the earth. And yet we are not willing to magnify the temple.
Mhm.
The one thing that we have control over, I don't have no control over Nona and her day. I don't have no
Mhm.
control over what Lola about to do. I don't have no control over anybody else. What my sister, I got a twin sister. We share DNA. Let me say this. And I don't have no control over what sis about to do. But you know what I have control over is how I show up in the world. I
Mhm.
control what I look like. I control how I feel. I control how I get to move. Baby, you can't get me off this square. It's some other squares you can't put me on, but this one you can't get me off.
Wow. So this is something, as you're talking, something that I think is a huge part of wellness that I would love you to speak to is it deals with mental wellness, but I think it is also emotional wellness. And that is social media. Like, look, as I said earlier, I spent 6 years working for the world's largest social technology company. So I
Yeah.
get how these things work. But I would be curious to know, how do you guard your emotional well being when it comes to the fact that social media basically gives you a front row seat to everybody's life? Well, let's put it this way, everybody's highlight reel, because it's not everybody's life. Like, we know the day people got engaged, we didn't know when they got divorced, we know when they got the car, we didn't know when it was repossessed, we know they got
Mhm.
the house, but didn't know they were evicted. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you get this front row seat to what's the amazingness of everybody's life. How do you protect your heart, and how can others protect their hearts so that they're not seeing their life through the prism of other people's fiction?
Hide and block. You know they got a hide button. On Instagram, they got a hide button. You don't have to even unfollow. You don't even have to block. They don't even have to know you did it. I just need
Yes.
to hide you, right? I need to hide you so I don't have to look at you. I don't have to see you. I don't have to make no big declaration, right? I just need
Right.
to hide you for a moment, and then I might unhide you, right? And then I can block you, right? So then when some people, it's some stuff that you like, I don't even want to see that. I'm not interested. You know how they give you
Yes.
a little tab.
Yes.
Interested, not interested. You're not interested, check or X. Hit the X. I'm not interested in that, right? And I think that we give up so much power
Yeah.
because we invite people into our life. We invite people into our spaces. See, I know that I'm a very public person. I'm on a show every week that comes out every week. I got, these Instagram reels that people like to argue up under, child, all the things, right? Million plus folks looking at it and they arguing. I don't know what to tell you, right? So I understand that. But then there's a part of my life that people just don't know because I
Mm.
choose not to share it. See, we want to
Mm.
be out
That's right.
here thinking Instagram is your diary. Instagram is not your diary. Instagram is not your journal.
Mm-mm.
And y'all up in here making these daily videos just waiting to get robbed. I don't even understand this, Nona. Like, Nona,
Mm-mm.
why they out here showing what they do all day? What time they leave their house?
Mm-mm.
You look like a mark. You look like you just getting set up for the okie doke. But that's neither here nor there, Nona. You know what I'm saying? Neither here nor there. I don't know what people is putting timestamps on when they leave their house. I don't.
Mm-mm.
Y'all never saw Home Alone. Good. All right. See Home Alone. All right. Cool. So you got people who want to mark their whole day out for everybody. Oh, I do a day in the life. My team has asked me numerous times, Brandi, do you want to do a day in the life? No, my day is not that interesting. I really, it's not. Like,
This is my day of the life.
I'm, I'm reading. What do you need me to timestamp this for? I'm sitting at my laptop. I'm reading. I'm studying. I'm prepping for the next person that's coming before me. Like, it's all the things. You don't want to see this. It's not interesting. Like, cut this foolishness out. You want to show. I don't understand it, but people are too.
Yeah.
They invite people in, and then when
Mm-hmm.
people get opinionated about how you invited them to your party, when people start to get opinionated, when people start to be disgruntled, when people start to speak up at a party that
Mm-hmm.
you invited them to, oh, okay, now we mad. Now I respect my privacy. Well, baby, ain't nothing been private.
Right. Why you're
You
you're you're making me laugh. You're making me laugh because it's so true. It's like, so you've lived your life publicly. Now that there is something that isn't a highlight reel, please respect my privacy. Wait, no, no, no. We need the public story. Because yes.
We was at the baby shower. We was at the engagement. We was at the wedding. We was in the Christmas photos, baby. We was in the Easter basket. How now?
Ah,
I saw what you was doing the other day. I was
right.
just with you. What you mean you private now?
And then it's such a shock because everything has been so great. So it's like
Yeah.
amazing, 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 amazing. Sorry, we're no longer together. Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. But you were just in Maldives. You were just in Cabo. Like we were just there, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think what
Yeah.
happens is that type, and honestly, that's part of the reason why on my social media, I'm very, very intentional. I really don't share about my life per se.
Yeah.
I may share
Yeah.
like clips from sermons. I may share like, teachings from the Bible and things about leadership, but I really don't share my life because one of the things that I'm very, very conscious of is I don't want anybody to come to my social media and leave feeling worse about their life. Like
Mhm.
I don't want that experience for people. I can't
Yeah.
control it because some people are going to be that way regardless. But it's like, to the best of my ability, I want you to leave feeling empowered. I want you to leave feeling inspired. And I
Yeah.
do think that sometimes we, especially those of us that do have a platform, we just have to be cognizant of that. And I think you do a really great job of that and being intentional about making sure that what you put out in the world leaves people better than they were when you found them, which
Yeah.
is not always easy.
Absolutely.
You talked in your book, Breakthrough Sold Separately, you talked about the necessary work of the deep work of healing and growing. And I'd love for you to share just some practical steps that you think people can take to start uprooting these limiting beliefs and lies so that they can get from the place of I'm not enough to I am sufficient in God.
Yeah. I always start here. The first thing I tell people is you got to get quiet.
Mm.
I tell the story in the book about being fired in 2017, 3 days after I turned 35 years old. And a friend of mine told me, Brandi, you weren't fired, you were released into your destiny. Right.
Ooh.
And after I got released into my destiny, after I got released into my destiny, I went on a silent meditation retreat. And when I went on that silent meditation retreat, that was the first time I had to confront myself. It was
Mm.
the first time I had to relearn the power, the cadence, the sound of my own voice. And what I realized when I was on that mountain in silence was there is no way I cannot win, right?
Mm.
God wants me to win. There's no way I can't win. And but in that moment, what I had to do was I had to tune everybody else out. And
Yeah.
so I think the first thing that people can do is they can get quiet. And that quiet can come 10 minutes. I literally just told my audience, yesterday that I needed to recalibrate. I need to get back on the frequency. And I said, in order for me to recalibrate and get back on the frequency, I shut everything off, put on a 10-minute meditation to reground myself, recalibrate, turn the Wi-Fi off and turn it back on to reset the box, and that was a powerful thing, right? But most people don't want to get quiet. I think the first thing is you got to get quiet because in the stillness, that's when God gives us the downloads. In the stillness, that's when the vision becomes clear. In the stillness, that's when we get to align and connect with our purpose. So number one, you got to get quiet. Number two, you have to get connected. And when I say get connected, I mean connected to the ultimate source, right? Connected to the power source. You got direct line to the plug. You ain't got to call nobody. You ain't got to say put me on. You already on. Wipe me down. So you already connected to the plug. And so that connection is, be it a spiritual practice, some religious practice, something that allows you to connect with source, to connect with God, to connect with the creator, so you can feel that, but also being able to be connected to the people around us, right? We tapped into these phones that we're so connected digitally, but we are so lacking the human connection, right? And so I think part of that deeper work that we can do is get connected. I started having these conversations with my grandmother, and because I started having these conversations with my 87-year-old grandmother over the last 2 years, it has totally changed the trajectory of our relationship. I could not stand my grandmother. I'm being all the way real. I was like, I did not have a sweet grandmama who was like baking cookies and being like, oh my God, like, no, that wasn't my grandmother. My grandmother would let you know 0 to 100 real quick what was on her mind. And it wasn't always nice. I'm like, where sweet grandmother, right? But because I started connecting more deeply to my grandmother and I just started listening. See, when we get quiet, it gives us the ability to listen, to hear, to really understand. And I started listening to my grandmother, and I have laughed with my grandmother and expressed things to my grandmother that I would have never thought I would have.
Mm.
So now at 87, my conversation, because of my ability to connect deeper with my grandmother, it spawned me and my sister and my little cousin, her 3 granddaughters, having weekly FaceTime calls with her. My grandmother's name is Doris, and we named our group chat Doris and the Dolls. And so every week, Doris and the Dolls sit on the phone. We'd be on FaceTime for like 2.5 hours. My grandmother's sitting there, we just be talking, laughing, catching up. My grandmother be reading now. She be reading you now. She lets you know. But it'd be funny because we now have this deeper connection and understanding with our grandmother. And I think those are just 2 ways that people can start to tap into the world within, and then to be able to permeate and to bring forth a better you in the world without.
My last question, I want you to kind of get in the mind of 33-year-old Brandi. Like, just get back to that place where you were pulling into the garage and you just knew that something wasn't right. I would love for you to speak to someone who is in that same state of mind, um, who's been struggling with just feeling like, okay, something isn't right. I don't feel good about myself. What is one thing that you would like to leave with them that you think you needed to hear when you were in that place?
One thing I needed to hear when I was in that place, it only gets better.
Mm,
It only gets better. I think that we think that this is the worst that things could be, right? And we land in this place of pity, and we land in this place of woe is me, and we land in this place of, oh, why can't I just be dot 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 dot.
yeah.
And if somebody would tell me it only gets better, like we keep thinking it's only going to get worse. But when you flip it and you change it and you get to change the narrative at any moment, you get to get back on the frequency. At any moment, you get to recalibrate. At any moment, you get to reset what this is. I can have a thought, but I can have another one. I can choose, but then I can choose again. When you understand that it only gets better. My father always says the goal is to get old, Brandi. That's the goal. The goal is to get old. And I used to laugh when he was saying this when I was in my 20s, like, because you think that old is so far away when you're in your 20s, and then you realize, like, oh, dang, I'm 42.
Right, right.
Oh, my 40s. Oh, okay, right.
Yep.
And you keep thinking that there's this decline that's going to happen in my life. There's this thing that's, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to have it. I'm going to lose it. But if somebody would have told me, Brandi, it only gets better in 10 years, the version of you that you are going to look at, the woman that's going to be looking back at you, the hope that you are going to be carrying, the vision that you are going to birth, the purpose that you are going to see come to fruition, it only gets better. I know right now it seems bleak. I know it feels like it can't be any worse, but if somebody could have told me stand in that door in that garage when I pulled in and said, baby, it only gets better from here. Baby, I'm here to tell you the moment down the road is only going to look brighter. Baby, I would have had a different outlook. I would have had a different outlook. I would have had a different spirit, because God wants me to win. How can I lose? And so if I was a 33-year-old Brandi, I would have told myself, baby, you got a winning hand. Baby, you don't want another one. I'm here to tell you that you got all aces. The spades is hitting the table good. You got a winning hand. Baby, if you just play this and play in the position that you were in, if you go in this house and get quiet and recalibrate your mind, if you connect to the source that is already here because you have the plug, baby, it gets better. I would have told myself that.
Whew, I'm encouraged. So I know that everyone listening to this has been encouraged. And that is a word for us to know, no matter how dark it is, no matter how alone you may feel, no matter how hopeless it may seem, it only gets better. I'm thinking of Ephesians chapter 2 and 10, and I want to leave everybody with this to just meditate on. It says, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago." Listen to me. You are not an accident. You are not lacking. You are already equipped for the life that God designed for you. Brandi, you are such a gift to this world, to all of us. I want to thank you for this conversation because it's been so powerful, just laced with wisdom and motivation. And I thank you for reminding us of the truth that it only gets better. For those of you who are listening, I want to encourage you to grab a copy of Brandi's book. It will challenge you, it will inspire you, and it will equip you to walk boldly in your purpose. And if this conversation blessed you, I want you just to do me a favor, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, somebody who needs to be reminded that they are enough. And no matter how crazy the situation may seem now, do not make a permanent decision in a temporary circumstance. We have to continue to reject the lie that we're not enough, because that is truly a lie from the enemy. And we have to step into the truth of who God has created us to be. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, for joining, for listening, for watching. And until next time, I want you to stay focused, and I want you to remember that God loves you, and so do I. So thank you for joining. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening and maybe even watching this episode of The Nona Jones Show. If you enjoyed this conversation, I want to encourage you to become a member of my Patreon community. You see, on Patreon, you're not only going to get full-length episodes of my podcast, but you will also get early access to any new content that I share, including new podcast episodes, sermons, even behind-the-scenes clips of my travels. And depending on the tier at which you join, you will also be invited to some live Q&A conversations that I have with my Patreon community. So what I want you to do is head over to patreon.com/Nona Not Nora to get signed up today. I want to see you in my community. Thanks for being here.